My twin brother visited me at the psychiatric facility, his face covered in bruises. When I discovered his abuser was his own son-in-law, I knew what to do. We switched places, and I taught that monster a lesson he'll never forget. Chapter 1. The visitor with bruised eyes. The sky outside my window was the color of forgotten memories. Pale, still, and stuck in a loop. Psych wards don't change much, neither do the people in them, not really. I'd been in this one for 6 months. Voluntarily. The world called it a rest period. I called it what it was. Hiding. From what? Life. Noise. Mistakes. The way people look at you after your wife dies and your daughter stops speaking to you. Sometimes disappearing feels like self-preservation. And then my brother walked in. Aaron. My identical twin. Only the man standing in front of me that morning wasn't the sharp-suited professor I remembered. He was hunched. His eyes wouldn't meet mine. His lip was split. His left cheekbone, swollen purple. And when he pulled up his sleeve to scratch his arm, I saw it. Finger-shaped bruises around his wrist. I sat up straighter. Who did this to you? He laughed, but it broke halfway through. Just life, I guess. I knew that tone. It was the same one I used to use when my marriage was crumbling, and I didn't want anyone to ask why I slept in the garage. No. Who did this, Aaron? He glanced at the security camera behind me, lowered his voice. You remember Lily? My daughter. Of course. Well, her husband. He swallowed. Mason. The golden son-in-law. Harvard Law. Perfect teeth. Charm that makes politicians look boring. I stared at him. He's hitting you. Aaron hesitated, then quietly. He's doing more than that. My fingers curled around the edge of the table. He looked up, something finally breaking loose in his eyes. Shame. Rage. Helplessness. It started after Lily's accident. She's been in a wheelchair since the fall. I moved in to help. I thought I was helping, but Mason. He treats me like a servant. He knows I won't fight back. Silence thickened between us. Then I said, you still got that birthmark on your shoulder. He blinked. Yeah, why? I leaned forward. Because I have a plan. Aaron frowned. A plan for what? I smiled, for the first time in 6 months. For revenge. Chapter 2. The Switch. 3 days after Aaron's visit, we switched places. It wasn't hard. We're twins. Same face, same voice, same posture. And over the years, we'd mastered each other's mannerisms like second skin. The only thing that ever distinguished us was Aaron's habit of tugging his shirt sleeve when nervous, a detail I'd now adopted. The hospital staff believed Aaron had checked out. I made sure he had the paperwork, the discharge card, the handshake from the orderly. I, on the other hand, stayed behind. Except I wasn't me anymore. I was Aaron now. Aaron, the weak, bruised man living in the guest room of his daughter's house. Aaron, the one Mason controlled like a dog on a leash. When I arrived at the house in suburban Oregon, everything looked picture perfect, too perfect. A white fence. A bird feeder. Red tulips. The illusion of peace. But when Lily opened the door in her wheelchair, her face lit up. Dad. I hadn't seen her since her wedding. Hadn't spoken to her since the accident. But now I had to pretend I was her father. I bent down and hugged her, fighting the ache in my throat. Behind her, standing in the foyer with a glass of wine and a dead-eyed grin, was him. Mason. Tall, tan, teeth like magazine ads. He approached slowly, like he owned the floor he walked on. Welcome back, Dad, he said. There was venom under the honey. I nodded. Missed this place. His eyes studied me. You look rested. I smiled back. I am. What I didn't say. I'd been memorizing every floorboard creak. Every camera angle. Every sound this house made since Aaron first described it. What looked like submission was now strategy. That night, he made me fetch his dinner. Made me clean the porch. told me to be quiet when Lily played piano in the other room. He made a point of speaking low but hitting hard. Little jabs with words that left invisible bruises. Don't forget the pills, old man. You always forget. Useless. I said nothing. Not yet. I needed to see how deep the rot went. Because when I exposed him, it wasn't just going to be about bruises. It was going to be about everything. And Mason. He had no idea who he just invited into his house. Chapter 3. The cameras in the walls. For 3 days, I observed. I stayed quiet. I watched. I took note of where Mason left his shoes. How he held his phone. What time he poured his wine. And more importantly, where he looked when he thought no one was watching. But what I noticed most wasn't Mason. It was the walls. Every room, except Lily's, had a tiny black dot. At first, I thought they were nails. Then I saw the faint glint behind one. Just above the kitchen archway. Hidden cameras. Every room. Every hallway. Even the downstairs guest bathroom. He was watching Aaron. Controlling him. Documenting him. Maybe even blackmailing him. That night, I waited until Mason left to pick up takeout. I told Lily I needed fresh air and took a walk to the end of the driveway, where Aaron had told me the old garden shed still stood. Inside the broken-down shed, beneath a stack of rusted lawn chairs, was an old breaker box with a handwritten label. CCTV main. Mason. He didn't hide it well. His arrogance was his blind spot. I pulled out my phone, launched the spy camera detector app I'd downloaded in the facility, and traced the signal strength back to the house. The cameras weren't just live. They were feeding somewhere else. I needed to know what was on those tapes. Back inside, I pretended to fall asleep early in the guest room. The one with the weak floorboard near the bed. At midnight, I heard Mason open the door without knocking. He stood there watching me. Breathing. Then left. He was checking to see if I was still broken. I wasn't. The next day, I installed a tiny flash drive recorder in the shed's CCTV junction. It would copy every video log, every live stream backup straight to the cloud folder I'd created under Aaron's name. By morning, I had 76 hours of footage. What I saw. Mason screaming at Aaron. Mason mocking Lily's wheelchair accident. Mason in Aaron's face. Spitting. You're only here because I let you stay, you pathetic, drooling wreck. But the worst. A video labeled, Guest Room. 2 a.m. Lily. I clicked it. It showed Lily wheeling herself into Aaron's room. Mason following seconds later. She whispered, he's asleep. Be quick. Mason walked up to the sleeping figure and, without warning, slapped him across the face. Twice. Lily didn't flinch. She turned and whispered coldly, he's not your real dad anymore, Mason. He's just an old sponge. I stared at the screen, my hand shaking. This wasn't just abuse. This was a betrayal from his own daughter. Something inside me broke. And something else began to burn. Chapter 4. The list in the wine cellar. By now, I wasn't just playing Aaron. I had become him. Fully. Completely. Every gesture. Every pause. Every way he used to smile without showing teeth. And it was working. Mason didn't suspect a thing. But I couldn't sleep. Not after what I saw. Not after watching my niece, his daughter, betray him so casually. So cruelly. It twisted something deep in my chest. So I began looking for more. And one night, while Mason was at another networking dinner and Lily had locked herself in her studio, I searched the one place Aaron had once said Mason kept his real secrets. The wine cellar. Not the faux racks upstairs for guests. But the hidden one. Down the narrow hallway, behind the laundry room. The one that smelled of wet stone and guilt. I pried the latch with a screwdriver. It opened with a reluctant creak, revealing a stone stairwell and rows of dusty wine bottles. None touched in months. But it wasn't the wine that mattered. Behind the last rack, buried under a false wooden panel, I found it. A black notebook. Worn. Unlabeled. Bound with a cracked leather strap. When I opened it, the first page made my stomach churn. People who owe me. Names. Amounts. Secrets. Threats. It was a ledger of extortion. Every page detailed someone Mason had blackmailed or ruined. A retired judge with a hidden affair. A developer who paid bribes for zoning permits. Lily's old therapist, whom Mason threatened into silence after her accident. And most disturbing, Erin's name. Circled twice. Next to it, insurance policy. Videos plus diagnosis file. Will never believe a mental patient. If he ever tries to leave, I own his mind. My hands were trembling. This wasn't just manipulation. This was calculated, premeditated enslavement. At the very end of the notebook, scrawled in red ink, was a list titled, Plan B. If Erin dies. Liquidate property. Fake grief for Lily. Contact Spencer and Wolf. LLP. Sell guardianship rights. Transfer cabin to LLC. Destroy all recordings. I nearly dropped the book. He planned to profit from Erin's death. To sell guardianship of Lily-like property. To erase him completely. I snapped photos of every page and sent them straight to my encrypted drive. This wasn't just for revenge anymore. This was for justice. For Erin. And it wasn't just Mason I had to expose. It was Lily too. But before I made my move, I needed one last confirmation. Something not written in ink, but buried in digital shadows. The hard drive in Mason's study. Where he kept the real monsters. Final chapter. The study at midnight. It was just past midnight. The house was silent, but not peaceful. It was the kind of silence that presses against your ears. Too still. Like the house was watching. I stepped into Mason's private study. Still dressed as Erin. Barefoot. Robe slightly open. The perfect mask of someone too medicated to be a threat. That was what Mason always expected. But tonight, I wasn't Erin. I was his twin. And I was here to end this. The walls of the study were lined with books Mason never read. Leather-bound illusions for guests who no longer came. The real treasure was the steel filing cabinet in the back behind the bar cart. And above it, the custom-installed server panel disguised as a breaker box. I opened it. 3 drives. 1 blinking. 1 humming. 1 labeled simply, failsafe. I inserted a USB clone device I'd prepared. One of the few tricks I picked up in my own years of military logistics and security work. Just because Erin was the soft-spoken one, didn't mean I was helpless. Files began downloading. Thousands of them. Videos. Recordings. Financial records. Mason didn't just blackmail people. He built an empire from it. But what froze my blood were the folders marked. Lily. Therapy. Erin. Journal. Compliance. Camera. Feeds. I opened the first file. It was a recording. Lily, barely 15, sitting silently as Mason's voice instructed her to repeat what we practiced. "Daddy's not hurting me," she said flatly. Another video. Erin sitting across from a doctor. Confused. Agitated. Pleading. I didn't imagine it. He's in her room at night. He told me to forget it, but I won't. The doctor, clearly bought and paid for, just nodded slowly and typed into his tablet. Diagnosis. Delusional psychosis. My hands clenched. Mason had built a psychological prison for my brother. He had conditioned his daughter to deny reality. And he recorded everything. Not to remember, but to control. I copied every file, every last shred. Then, I did something that Erin never would have dared. I opened the house-wide speaker system, and played one video, the one of Mason coaching Lily over and over to deny. 30 seconds in, Lily's door creaked open. She padded out slowly, confused, a sketchbook clutched to her chest. Then came Mason's footsteps. He stormed into the room, face pale, voice shaking with false calm. "Erin, what the hell are you doing? Turn that off." I turned around, and dropped the mask. "I'm not Erin." He froze. I took a step forward and tossed him the hard drive. This is every lie you ever told. Every life you ever ruined. Tomorrow morning, every name in that book is getting a copy. And if you ever come near my brother again. I didn't finish. Lily stepped forward and said it for me. I'll testify. About everything. Mason looked at her, then at me. And for the first time, the man who lived off fear was afraid. The next morning, we were gone. Aaron and I checked out of the state, with our evidence turned over to a journalist I trusted. Lily, now legally emancipated and living with a counselor, gave a quiet interview that broke the internet within days. Mason. He resigned from 3 boards, fled to a property in Belize, and then vanished completely. Some say he drowned. Others say he faked his death. I don't care. Because Aaron is finally free. And so is the truth. Epilogue. The journal he tried to burn. We found it weeks later, after everything had quieted down. Tucked behind a wall panel in Aaron's old room, sealed away like a wound the house had tried to hide. A charred, leather-bound notebook, edges blackened, middle pages crisp with smoke damage. The smell of old ash still clung to the binding. Mason must have tried to destroy it. But the fire hadn't finished the job. Aaron recognized it instantly. He took it from me, he whispered, turning it over in his hands. Said I was writing paranoid nonsense. We sat on the porch of a rented cottage by the sea, 1,000 miles from that house, and opened it together. The first few entries were shaky, scribbles, paranoia mixed with heartbreak. Lily's drawings have changed. There's a camera behind the thermostat. He visits her room after 11 p.m. Then came the sketches, detailed, painfully precise diagrams of Mason's study, notations of wire paths, a hand-drawn layout of the secret wine cellar and the server cabinet above the bar cart. A list of passwords. Some crossed out. Some boxed. I didn't imagine any of it, Aaron said quietly, voice breaking. I wrote it all down. But they told me I was sick. I didn't say anything. I just gripped his shoulder. He had documented the abuse, the patterns, the gaslighting, even the buried security footage timestamps. His journal had been a lifeline, and Mason had tried to burn it like kindling. But fire couldn't erase the truth. One page near the middle stood out. If anyone finds this, I wasn't crazy. Please believe me. And if you're reading this, thank you. Thank you for saving me. Aaron. I couldn't breathe for a moment. He didn't remember writing it, but it was his voice. Not broken, not medicated, not afraid. Just Aaron. My twin. My brother. We made copies of the journal, sent it to the same reporter who broke the story. The public didn't just read it. They felt it. It became evidence, yes, but also a testament. To survival, to sibling love, to the danger of unchecked power behind closed doors. Lily drew the cover art for the printed edition. A cracked mirror, with one half showing her face, and the other, Aaron's eyes. Watchful. Awake. The title. The journal he tried to burn. And beneath it, in small handwritten script, I remember everything now.